We are creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective, moments in time captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
I've had a blast producing and hosting this show, but the time has come for me to ask you guys for a little help. If you would like to help keep this show going, please check out my Patreon page. Patreon is much like Kickstarter, except it's an ongoing funding platform, meaning it has no end date. With as little as $2, you can help me grow this show to new heights. The Patreon link will be in the description below. Just go down there, click the link, check out all the information. If you dig it, hit that donate button. Anyhow, either way, thank all you guys for the support so far. Every guest on the Working Artist Project has one thing in common: a dedication to growth. Today's guest is no different. Sharel's relentless focus on her craft allowed her to accomplish amazing things, from attending and completing her education at the prestigious School of Julliard to touring the world with legendary artists. She is an unstoppable force of focus, hard work, perseverance, and dedication. Please help me in welcoming Sharel Cassity to the Working Artist Project.
Thank you.
Sharel, I want to just start with you telling me a little bit about where you're from and how you got to playing saxophone and how you made it to New York City.
Well, I was born in Iowa City, and I moved around quite a bit as a kid, partly because of the military and partly because of a divorce. So I was moving from state to state all the time, and I kind of clung to music from a young age. Okay. And then we settled in Oklahoma when I was 12. And from then I continued playing the piano and the saxophone. And my father was a musician and a music therapist.
Was he in the military or?
He wasn't. My mom
was?
worked for the government.
Okay.
But he was actually in the military way before I was born. But he played Hammond B3 and piano and trumpet and French horn.
Nice.
And was kind of a savant at playing music.
Okay, cool. And so you played. You say you started on piano and saxophone.
Yes.
But you play like bass clarinet and flute. And how did you get to all those other instruments? 'Cause that's kind of rare.
Yeah, it was a gradual process. I played saxophone first, and then when I got into high school, I was always first chair on saxophone.
Oh, okay.
So by the second year, the band director said, "You know what? This year you're going to play clarinet." And then I became first chair in the clarinet section.
Oh, damn.
The next year, he said, "Okay, well, this is too easy. Now you're going to play flute."
Okay.
And so then I ended up playing flute. In our jazz bands, we played La Fiesta by Chick Corea. Mm-hmm. So that arrangement had piccolo, so I learned to play piccolo in that. And he also had me playing marimba on some things. And so in high school, I got a lot of my doubling started.
Right. So I wonder if he was like aware of that. Like if he was like just like, okay, she's going to need to double. It makes you a more marketable musician, you know?
I think he was, because he was quite an exceptional big band director.
Okay.
That was his thing, was big band. So he knew I'd have to double.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how has that like helped you in your career so far? Like, are you doing like Broadway stuff, or have you done that kind of thing? Or?
I have. I've subbed on a lot of Broadway and off-Broadway productions. And it's come in handy, you know, on a lot of work that I've done, whether it's recording or big band or Broadway. Really, the flute and clarinet alone have really, you know, come in handy on a lot of gigs.
Right. So after high school, what happened? What school did you go to?
I went to the University of Central Oklahoma for 2 years.
Okay.
They gave me a full scholarship. North Texas had given me a full scholarship, but on classical saxophone.
Oh.
And at the time, I wanted to make the switch. So UCO was the school that would allow me to play in the jazz bands and take jazz improv and, you know, that kind of thing.
So you started and then 2 years and then you outgrew it, or what happened? You got bored? What happened?
I started to want to be in a bigger pool. There weren't many saxophone players out there. My first teacher was Brian Gorel, and he was a great teacher. But you need a lot of teachers. And at the time, I was studying with a trumpet player, and you know, every now and then an artist would come through Oklahoma. But I wanted to study with the best, the greatest musicians. Right. So I went to the East Coast. Okay. And my aunt lives in Boston. Oh. So I went to Boston first. Enrolled in Berkeley, but ended up getting a last-minute better scholarship at New England Conservatory. Ended up not being able to take it because my dad apparently claimed me at the time, and I was technically a dependent. So there was a lot involved, and I ended up not being in school, and very quickly moved to New York without a school or without a plan. I just loved the music. Mm-hmm. My first place that I went to in New York was Smalls.
Okay.
And immediately it felt like family. And
well, had you been to New York before at this point? It was your first time in New York?
I had gone for a week.
Okay.
To visit a friend that was actually from Oklahoma.
Okay.
He invited me to visit for a week, and I did. And we went to see Branford's quartet play at Studio 54. And
oh, nice.
Just went all around the city hearing music. And I said, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
So about 2 months later, I ended up just making the jump and moving to New York with basically, I had about $500.
Oh, shit. Man, can you even move to New York with $500? I think that's
hard.
Impossible. Damn.
It's not easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were couch surfing or what?
Yeah, for a little while, and then I found a room.
Okay.
And a lot of things happened to where I would find a place, and then the person who I was renting from, expected more from me than just rent. So I would end up moving out that night.
Oh, what do you mean?
They would expect different, like I would wake up and someone would be naked over me.
Oh, shit.
And,
that's out.
I said, okay, I have to go.
Oh, man.
So that happened twice, actually.
What?
And then I lived with a woman who, she kept finding panties in her bathroom, and she thought that her husband was cheating with me, but he was actually bringing women over in the daytime.
Oh,
and she
Lord.
didn't believe me when I told her that. So she kicked me out, and again, spontaneously homeless.
This is like some shit that can only happen in New York.
Yeah. So that's the start in New York. It was a little bumpy.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's first year is just like life testing the fuck out of you, just like, are you gonna stay here? Are you gonna leave?
Yep.
Wow. So
we'll do that.
So did you finally land into a more permanent living situation, or?
I did. I eventually got an apartment, and I had a job hostessing that turned into waitressing and then bartending, which lasted through school. I ended up going back to school at the new school.
Oh, okay.
When I got to New York, I was hanging around Smalls and the musicians, and a lot of the guys my age were at the new school.
Oh, okay.
So that inspired me to go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got a decent scholarship and, finished my bachelor's there.
What was the growth process like for you in New York, that first year?
It was intense because I immediately realized that I wasn't ready at all.
Oh, wow.
To be there. I knew bird tunes and I knew some tunes and some solos and stuff, but I was by no means ready to just be on a scene.
Yeah.
So I would go every night to the jam session and learn all kinds of tunes. And then it got to where I would go and I would stay until there was a tune I didn't know. And then I would just go home and learn that tune. Come back the next night.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And it was great though. The community was pretty much very supportive. And I had a great time doing it because that's what I wanted. I was chasing the music.
After the new school, you decided to go to Juilliard.
Yeah. Right.
So was that whole process, was that worth it, going to Juilliard for you?
For me, it was because it was a progression. Mm-hmm. Again, I was out of the new school. I was playing, but I still didn't feel like I had the time to be where I wanted to be. And I also felt like I needed to be more steeped in the history of jazz to be considered valid, to have validity and be able to know what I was talking about from the roots of the music.
Right.
So Juilliard for me was a great experience. I mean, it was a life-consuming program.
Okay.
I didn't do much outside of Juilliard. In fact, I stopped hanging out downtown. I stopped, at the little jazz clubs. And
right.
I was pretty much just at Juilliard.
Wow.
But that was great. I got to practice 6-8 hours a day and go to classes the rest of the time. And I had great instructors while I was there. Victor Goins was great. And a lot of the teachers were great. Ben Wolf and Carl Allen. And so, and then the classical departments, Kendall Briggs.
Did you do both?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We did. I didn't double in classical, but we had to take classical classes.
Okay.
The ear training and the it's called Essential Elements, but it's actually Counterpoint.
Yeah. So you got an interesting story because you know, this is kind of cheesy, but you started from the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like you came from Oklahoma to New York City, and you made it all the way to Juilliard. You know what I mean? Like for people who don't know, like you can't just go to Juilliard. Like there's a very select, you know, few people who get to go to that school. So you had to be one of the baddest people on the scene, or you know, to even get that opportunity.
You had to.
So like, how did that come about? Did you just audition, or? I
did. I auditioned. It was a really thorough audition, and I think they just saw something in me. You know, I don't know that I was the baddest cat or, you know, anything like that, but I think they saw something in me.
Like, how did you keep yourself humble through all of that? Because you're like, man, I'm climbing up. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm going to be jazz royalty pretty soon.
Well,
like,
I didn't know that. And to be honest, I was one of the oldest students at Juilliard.
Really?
At the time, I was 28.
Okay.
And although I was getting my master's, a lot of guys there were 18, 20.
Really? Okay.
And they were feeling like, okay, we're the baddest, you know.
Oh.
But for me, I felt like I had a long way to go. And I was actually learning a ton from my classmates.
Okay.
You know, my classmates were also very accomplished, and we were hard on each other.
Yeah.
Which was good. It was healthy.
Did you feel any kind of pressure to like represent for your female compatriots?
I don't know. I've always felt pressure to be the greatest that I can be, and not let being female get in the way of that.
Right.
I looked up to some females growing up, like Ingrid Jensen, Reenie Rosnes, and Jerry Allen.
Right.
But yeah, I try not to let being female be a factor.
Yeah.
Just kind of try to be the best, because, you know, it is sad when I see a female play and she's not ready.
Right.
But I remember being that girl. So it just depends how long you want to be in that position.
Right.
You know,
well, I think sometimes women get more attention in that stage of their musical journey just because there's fewer of them. So they're more harshly judged. But it's like triple the amount of guys and men in the same position that they are at the same time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, the ratios are about the same. It just happens that one has a much less populated.
Right. You know? Yeah, for sure. 100%. So like, what would you tell like a young woman coming up attempting to break into her career? Like, what's the secret to growth at like you experienced?
To work really hard. To work hard and to find people that you trust their advice, you know, and listen to those people. And if you have a vision, not to change your vision for anybody. I know that a lot of the things I did was maybe for record labels, they wanted my image to be this or that. Or the cover of the album to be this or that. And I didn't get a choice because I didn't pay for it. So I always felt like since I was coming up without the money to put out my own product, that I didn't have that much of a choice in what I wanted to put out there image-wise. And I was told that.
Oh, they were straight up with you.
They would tell me that. And, you know, I'm glad that my music got out there. But in the end, I would say don't compromise.
Yeah.
If in this day and age, especially.
Yeah.
Put something out yourself if you know, if that's the case, or you know.
Now, were they doing the same thing to the guys on the label?
Yeah.
They were, okay.
Yeah, they wanted a certain thing, and they, you know.
Right.
So
were they doing that with the music also, saying like, well, this song isn't really so all of it they had their hands in. Wow.
So I found when a label pays for an album, it's a give and take.
Wow. Okay.
Which is why I want to start my own label now and put out, you know, my first release in 2017.
That's right. You just recorded it.
Yeah. And I want to do everything myself this time.
Okay. Cool. And so your release, they can find it on maybe your website or.
Oh yeah, and I'll have it on Amazon and iTunes.
Okay. Your website is
SharelCassity.com.
Cassity is spelled with
Cassity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because it's a little different.
It is.
Cool, man. So, like, I'm curious to know, like, what was the most challenging time that you've had so far in your career, and what did you do to overcome it?
I'd say the most challenging time was when I left school, but I hadn't played with anyone, and I didn't have any albums out, and I was just on the scene. And I was trying to find a way to get an album out, play with my heroes, and that kind of thing. And it turns out that one of the things I learned at Juilliard was to reach out. And so I started reaching out. I called Jimmy Heath.
Oh.
You know, I showed up to the Dizzy Band concerts. You know, I would go to all kinds of concerts of people I wanted to play with.
Yeah.
And I would learn their music, you know.
Okay.
I learned all of Mulgrew's music, hoping to play with him one day. And
Yeah.
even though I never got to, it was good for me
Right.
to do that anyway. So
Right.
that was my way of
Yeah.
breaking in.
That's a good plan, you know.
Yeah.
Reach out, just be out there, make yourself visible, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
Visible, but also talk to people. Tell them you want to play with them.
Right. Right.
You know.
So you would just go walk up to cats, I want to play with you.
No. No, people have done that too.
Yeah.
To me, and it's
Is
kind
that
of
weird
awkward.
for you? It's weird?
It's a little awkward.
Yeah?
But I picked up the phone. Actually, a friend of mine dialed the number for me because I was too shy.
Okay.
I said, no, I'm not calling Jimmy Heath. They said, you have to call Jimmy Heath. And I think they knew something I didn't.
Okay.
But I took the phone, and he said, hello. And I just said, hi, Mr. Heath. You know, how are you doing? This is Sharel. Remember me,
Right.
that kind of thing. Oh, yeah, the sax player. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you double? And I said, yeah. Do you read? And I said, yeah. And then, he said,
Yeah.
I'll have to have you in the band sometime.
Yeah.
So it was very natural.
Right. That's dope.
And I think through the years, the gigs that I've gotten have been because I either got to sit in with someone or play with someone, and then someone in that circumstance remembered me.
Right.
And then called me and,
That's cool. That's cool. And you still playing with Jimmy.
Yeah.
So what year was that you
Amazingly.
first called him?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
So from 2008 until now, almost 2017, you still kicking it with Jimmy.
Yeah.
Mr. Heath, that's amazing.
He's amazing.
Yeah, that's great, man. So how many years have you spent in New York so far?
16.
16 years. I don't know if I know anybody who spent that long in New York.
Yeah,
you know.
it's been a while.
Yeah, that's man. So how did you do that? Like, how did you manage to just keep it trucking?
Well, my goal was, at first, I had a goal where I wanted to play every night of the week. I just wanted to play.
Okay.
And that happened. That goal happened, but it was, $50, $100 gigs most nights.
Right.
And then you realize it wears you out, and you don't have time to write. You don't have time for your own projects. So then I started only wanting to play with my heroes.
Okay.
That was the next goal.
Okay.
So then that started to happen.
Okay.
And it was very slow and gradual, but, it happened. And at some point, when that happened, I reached a stage where I said, okay, this is great, but I have a lot of time in between.
Yeah.
Because when you're touring, you make a lot of money, then you come back to New York.
Right.
Or
right.
a good, not a lot of money, but a
You
good
get
amount.
rich, kids.
Right. Rich on jazz. But, you make some money when you go on the road, and then you come back. You're not going to play, most of the time, you're not going to play
Right.
little gigs that don't pay as much, because time-wise, you want to work towards bigger projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I started realizing how much time I had in between, and started thinking, well, how is this helping anyone being here? Just practicing and writing. Yeah. I can always do that. I can do that from anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I started wanting to teach.
Oh, cool.
And maybe mentor younger kids. And
okay. Like, I know a lot of times people have a trouble, especially at least musicians, because, broadening their horizons into other things like teaching or whatever. Like, how did you know it was time for you to go into another direction or try some different things?
I started to realize that I was just living for the music, which was great. You want to live for the music.
Right.
But it's almost like the music is living you if you're not careful.
What do you mean?
You can live for the music and keep doing the same thing over and over. Writing music, practicing, going to play, recording albums, going on tour, coming back. The same thing over and over, and expecting more results or different results.
Okay.
I think isn't that the term for insanity?
Yeah, that is.
Doing the same thing over
Right.
and over. And I said, this is what I had dreamed of, but I actually want more.
Mm-hmm.
I want more for my life. Not, and I'll always want more for music.
Right.
And to be able to give more. But for me to be able to give more to the music, I had to try something else.
Okay.
And and that meant, doing something that helps other people.
Right.
So, eventually I want to start a camp. I already have in the plans the blueprint for. I want to start a lot of different things that are going to help people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because playing music is the most selfish thing you can do.
It can be. I also think it can heal people, but only those who listen.
Right.
So, to reach a wider group of people, you have to, I think, do a little more.
Okay. Yeah.
And for me, I realized that's what would make me happy and be in control of the music and my art and not let it control me and my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like your perception of music has changed over the last 16 years since you've been in New York City. Would you say that's true? Or
it's definitely true.
Yeah.
For me, even 5 years ago, it's the only thing that mattered in life.
Yeah.
And it sounds ridiculous now.
Right.
But
well, I think all musicians are, you have a period in life where that is the only thing that matters. Like you don't care about anybody, just this instrument and making it sing, and then like life happens and you grow up.
Yeah. You get a little older and you say, well, what have I left behind me?
Right.
Who have I really inspired or helped?
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes a little more important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because music, once you have the confidence to realize that the music is always going to be there for you, and you're always going to make great music.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better if that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes some courage to say, okay, I'm going to let that be what it is, and now develop my life and other people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's deep, man. Now that you're not playing music from that place, why do you play music now?
Because I have to.
What does
There's
that mean?
still something in me that is, I have to play. It's for me the most raw and best way, to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
I just love music. Music still hits me to the core.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge part of me still, and always will be. But I play because I have to play. If I didn't play, I would just lose my mind.
Damn. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. So what's up? What are your future plans? Like, what are your future goals going forward?
Well, like I said, I'm starting a camp. I want to eventually maybe even start a situation where I can hire more musicians, whether it's through being a band leader or starting a festival or something. Mm-hmm. I want to teach some more. And develop that side of my career. Definitely put out more albums. I want to say one of the most frustrating things in New York is getting to a point where you have enough material for 3, maybe 4 albums, and you don't have the means to record them.
Right.
So you say, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
So now I want to, now that I'm able, I want to record, at least an album a year with my different projects.
Right. Right.
And, put those out and see where that goes.
Like, just speaking of recording, how do you choose the people that you're going to record with?
I try to have, bands. I try to develop a band over a certain period of time and then go in the studio. Mm-hmm. And I choose the musicians solely based on the music at first.
Okay.
And then I also look at how busy they are. Are they going to be able to be a part of my project? If they're working already 280 days of the year.
Right. Yeah.
So I pick people that are available beyond that and that have the right vibe personally.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Yeah. Like, what kind of vibe do you look for?
Someone that's not going to be a diva or cause problems, when we go on the road.
Right.
With sound men or festival people.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's easier to get along with. Or, I've been on the road with people who are very passionate about the music and they're very introverted. And to me, that's fine.
Okay.
I can deal with that. But I know some people get, wigged out by that too. So.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on what the type of people you like to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. So would you change anything about your musical journey thus far?
I like to think that I would. I like to think, well, if I would have gone to an arts high school, or, you know, if I would have gone straight to New York sooner, or things like that. But I think everything happens for a reason, and everything lands in its own place. Mm-hmm. So I think the thing, like I said earlier, the only thing I would change is I would be more adamant to what I saw as my vision versus what other people saw. Because everyone is multifaceted. Yeah. You know, we could all have different images, different looks. We could love different styles of music, you know, different genres of jazz at different periods of time. Yeah. So just because one person says, you know, I want you to play this type of music and look this way, one year, that may not be where your head is at. Right. So I say do everything in your own time.
Okay. I want to switch gears and just talk about, like, money. Like, how do you set prices? Because a lot of times if I'm giving a master class at a school, like, all the kids who want to be jazz musicians are worried about making money, and rightfully so. Yeah. And they want to know, how do they set their price? Like, how does that work? You know, like, in town and out of town, which is like two completely different monsters to deal with. You know, and being a band leader versus being a sideman. Like, what are some things that you do?
A lot of your price depends on where you are in your career. Mm-hmm. And how many people ahead of you they can hire for a lesser price, or a greater price. You know, at some point I realized, well, they could get, you know, Antonio Harder, they could get, you know, Gary Bartz, and they can get these Kenny Garrett. Okay, so how much are they getting paid? Okay, and you find that out, and you're like, well, who's below me, and how much are they getting paid? So you kind of balance it out. You ask a lot of people. You ask your mentors. You know, even some of your friends. Find out kind of what the going rate is and balance that to where you are with your career. Right. And in the city, there tends to be just set rates for clubs and whatnot, but some people accept that and some people don't. Right. So you have to decide if you have the star power to demand more. Right. Are you selling more tickets? You know, exactly. If you are.
I think that's something that people miss. Like, this is a product. Like, they just expect to get money without producing. And when producing, I mean people need to come see you, because why would I pay you more money if it's two people in the audience? You know what I mean? Your music might be beautiful, but if no one cares, you know, then we have a problem, right?
And when I was starting out, the clubs would be empty at sometimes, and I would go to the person at the door, the owner of the club, and say, hey, I know you didn't make your money. What can you pay us that's going to be fair? Oh. And they loved it. Okay. And they had me back. Oh. And they thanked me for it. Okay. You know, and then when I started playing there more often and having audiences, they would give me more money. You know, without even talking to me. Oh, you had such and such amount tonight, so here's a little extra.
Oh, cool.
You know, and you develop that relationship with people. Right. But if people think you're just taking them, you know, then they're not going to work with you so easily.
Well, maybe you need to know who and who not to do that with, because it might not always work out in your favor with certain club owners or certain, you know, promoters or whatever, right?
Yeah, but I think everybody appreciates not losing money.
Right. No, for sure.
And when you know that they lost money because you didn't promote your gig or because you don't have a following that they thought you had. Right. Then that's on you.
Right, for sure.
And I don't think many artists really realize that.
Right. Because in today's market, we have to, like, do everything, to brand ourselves. We got to make beautiful music. We got to, like, style ourselves, and, like, we have to sell ourselves, you know. And the selling is probably the part that most people miss out.
Yeah. We're so focused on the music, which is a great thing. But in this day and age, you have to have both sides.
Yeah. So people may not know this, but, like, when you go on the road, you know, just an arbitrary number, you get paid like thousands of dollars for like a set amount of gigs or whatever. And then when you're at home, someone might offer you, especially in New York City, $25 or $50 to play the gig with this, like, you know, the same group of people, you know, the same level. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, how do you psychologically cope with that? You know, where you have this one group of people who think you're great and they want to compensate you fairly for the work you've put in. There's other group of people who take it for granted because there's 1,000 other groups just as good or better.
Right. For me, it is what it is, and playing is playing no matter what you're getting paid. And the goal is to get paid because we do this for a living. But when you're in New York, I look at New York like a drawing board, kind of like just a pool of people. You know, if I'm in New York and someone calls me to play for $25, I'm probably going to say no because I could be cooking dinner, you know, so I could be practicing or something.
But to be fair, like everyone's not in that position. Like I know when I first moved to New York, my first gig actually was $25 gig in Brooklyn that I had to bring drums to in the winter. And like I lived in Harlem. So I didn't have a choice because like I don't know anyone. Like sometimes you need to eat. You gotta eat. Yeah. You know? It's like I gotta eat. I gotta go make.
You gotta
this
meet
gig.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a whole lot of those when I first moved to town, probably for 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of gigs that were just door gigs. Right. And we might walk away with $10. Right. And a lot of it though has to do with, do you enjoy who you're playing with? You know. Right. Now if let's say, not that they would, but if, you know, someone like Warren Wolf or Kenny Barron called me, you know, to do a session for free, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, I would maybe pay. Right. So, like, you know, like I said, New York is kind of a drawing board. It's a melting pot. So you can play with whoever you want there. It's a workshop. Right. It doesn't really matter how much you're getting paid because that could turn into something. Yeah. And even if it doesn't, you might meet somebody else, or you might get more musical knowledge. You might, there's a lot of things. I agree. When you're starting out, you have to do everything. Yeah. You have to take everything. I played in the park. You know, I developed my mailing list playing in the park. You know, it seems like another lifetime, but you got to do that. But then as you start touring, you can pick and choose what you want to do and what you need to do. Some things might not be good for you to do. Because if you're getting paid as a leader to play at Blue Note and Dizzy's Club, but then you take a $25 gig at Swing 46 the same week, they're like, why are we paying you this much? Exactly. So you have to decide what's good for you to do. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's about the music. If someone who I really would love to play with calls me to play for the door even, I'd be like, yeah. Right. But it just depends on who it is. Yeah. 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 That's good advice. You know. So we're going to change gears to talk about university. Yeah. And do you think it's worth it to pay like $100,000 to obtain like, you know, a jazz studies degree or some other arts degree? Well, when I finished New School, I was looking at the amount that I ended up paying. And I thought, well, if I would have just taken private lessons the whole time, I might be better off. But then I was thinking about it, and the experiences that I got at the school and the relationships I developed with the student body and with some of the teachers were really invaluable to this day. And that definitely includes Juilliard too. So and it depends who you are and where you are in your playing. If you're already tearing it up and playing with major artists, you probably don't need to go to school. Right. But if you still need to work on your craft a little more and get your ideas together and that sort of thing, I think it could be a good idea. Maybe not paying $100,000, but if you get some kind of scholarship, it would be worth it. Because you can learn a lot about your peers and the business, and you know. I think there's some alternatives. Like maybe, like I think you should definitely go to school for something. But if you're gonna pay, like try to go to a cheaper school, in a school with a good program. Like I was thinking about this, and maybe you can get 4 or 5 of your friends to go with you who are also on your level, and then you guys can go in there together and develop together at a school that's not as expensive. Right. Because, you know, you're going to have to pay that back plus interest. You know, I don't know what the That's a good idea. I would recommend not getting into debt. That's what I'm saying. If at all possible as a jazz musician, not getting into debt. If you have to acquire a little bit of debt, that's understandable and you can probably pay it off. Right. But that's a good idea. You know, I know a lot of people are choosing schools like Michigan State right now in Lansing for that same reason. Mm-hmm. It's not as expensive. It's a smaller pool of musicians who are good and who do have a vision. Right. And a lot of them do end up in New York. Right. So there are other options. At the same time, if you go to Berkeley or Juilliard, you have that name behind you. Right. So you're really paying for that, and it depends how important that is to you. Yeah. I mean, you're going to lose something
if you go to a school like Michigan or UNO or, or any other university with a good program, but maybe not the name, you're going to lose something, but you'll be richer, or you'll have more money when you get out of school and not have to like have the pressure of paying off the student loans until the system is fixed or changed, in America, because it's just kind of ridiculous. It
is ridiculous. And I've gotten to where I've actually thought back and wished I would have gotten either an education degree or a business degree, something in another field. Would have maybe served me a little better, just paper-wise, as far as having the paper that I paid for. Because having a paper that says you can perform music doesn't do you anything.
Right, because you could just do that already.
Right.
It's like you didn't need any validation.
Right. The only thing that gives me validity from school is the fact someone can say I went to Juilliard.
Right.
And then people go, oh, she's valid suddenly,
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just fucking impressive. I mean, it just is,
Thanks.
What's your definition of success?
My definition of success is knowing what makes you happy and doing that. I think a lot of people, myself included for a time, chase things that they want other than what they need. So I think to know what you need to be happy and then to still be able to pursue your dreams, I think that's success.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good definition. I like that. I like that.
Thanks.
In America, there's this undercurrent of like unconscious bias towards women. So how do you think the music scene deals with unconscious bias towards women?
It's, it definitely exists, this unconscious bias. Just from our history and the history of the United States and possibly the world. I think there are a lot of people that are very open-minded and progressive, and they're making a point to hire some of the most talented female musicians or to mentor younger ones, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take us quite a while to get to a point where it's accepted, not just from jazz musicians in the scene, but from the community as seeing women as part of jazz, other than vocalists.
Right.
Or pianists. And when people think of jazz, and I know some people, disagree because the scene is run by a number of different cultures now. But when people think of jazz around the world, they still think of black male jazz musicians.
Right.
But to accept another image is going to take a lot of time. And it's going to take a lot of women doing some things that really touch people and inspire people to change that. And I think we're on the way now. It's in a process of progression now, which is great. But I don't know if I'll see it or not, where everything is equal.
So who's a person you consider a role model, especially in your early life?
In my early life, pre-New York, I would have to say my band director, Wayne Kuhn. He really set the standard for me then. He said things, he would pull me aside and say things like, the best always rises to the top. And say things like the difference between all the great leaders and figures and the ones who weren't was that they kept getting back up. So he really would say something like that and just walk away and leave me to think about it.
Right.
And he challenged me, and so as a younger person learning jazz, he was really influential.
So he gave you that lesson of perseverance, like early on. So when you did get to New York and you faced different challenges like the panties and all of this,
right?
He was just, all I got to do is keep going.
Yeah, I may not have been ready musically, but I was ready,
mentally,
yeah.
So what's important to you, like mission, vision, or core values, and why?
That's an interesting question. For me, I've learned that it's core values because that gives you longevity. If you deal with people in a way that creates relationships based on values, and you're not jumping from one gig to the other because you think it's so much better just for one gig.
Right.
Or, like I mentioned before, club owners just letting them sit with a loss because you didn't do the publicity. I think those values go a long way. They might actually go further in some cases than someone's actual playing. So core values, but also, you've got to be on a mission and you've got to have a vision.
Right.
So they're all important, but I would say core values.
Core values. Like, do you discuss these types of things with other leaders in your community?
I have.
Yeah? Oh, cool.
When I came upon situations where, I had one gig and then I got called for another gig with one of my heroes that paid a lot more, but I was contracted for this other gig already. And the time was, short, and I called my mentors.
Okay.
I called about 3 of my mentors and said, what would you do? And they all said the same thing.
What'd they say?
They said, you could jump this gig for that gig now, but chances are the other leader is going to have more respect for you for sticking to your guns. They're going to know you're loyal.
Right.
By you jumping, they're going to see that you're not loyal. And then the person that you're leaving the gig for, they're going to be upset.
Right. Yeah.
So, really, that goes a long way.
So what advice would you give to like a young musician coming up, assuming a leadership role? Like, what would you say to them to help them succeed and avoid some of the pitfalls that you did when you were first coming into those types of situations?
Being a leader is much different than being a sideman. Mm-hmm. And when you're the leader, you can't focus 100% on the music unless you have people around you handling everything else. If you have the right management and staff around you, then maybe you can. Right. But then you're still managing the music and where it's going and the band and, speaking in between tunes, everything. It's a lot of responsibility. And as a leader, you spend more time booking the band, you spend more time contracting and get people's passports and things like that. So there's a lot to consider, especially publicity, and the image is the image of the band. And
Right.
It's a different thing.
Okay. Like, what are the most pressing challenges you feel like leaders in our community are facing today, or musicians specifically? Like, why?
I think the most pressing challenge today is coming up with a product, with an image that people can actually sell and that draws people. I think John Batiste is a great example of that. Yeah. Because he could have just played standards. Yeah. Same with Robert Glasper. I saw him since 2000, and he was one of the best jazz pianists coming up on the scene. Yeah. But he decided to do something that was going to forward the music and take the music somewhere else, and that would create an audience. Wow. Yeah. And so it's that vision that's the biggest challenge, knowing what you can do and what most people are probably content with doing. Right. Or maybe doing something a little different that's going to, where you can still do what you want to do, but it's going to attract more people. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. But to close things out, I want to know, what are you most grateful for? I'm grateful every day to have gotten where I've gotten and to be alive and still learning and still playing and, to be able to think about, things like, having a nice place to live, having a family, Yeah. So I'm really thankful for a lot of things in my life. Every day when I wake up, because a lot of musicians don't get that. Yeah. Yeah. I've been very fortunate. That's dope, man. I want to thank Sharel Cassity for coming on the Working Artist Project. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Dope. I'll catch y'all later. Later. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Working Artist Project. But before you go, I just need you to do one more thing. Don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can also reach me at DarrianDouglas.com. Just when you get there, just go to the contact page, drop me a line. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know if you like the podcast. I want to know if you want to hear certain topics. Whatever it is, just let me know. Let me know what it is, and I'll do my best to make it happen. Oh, yeah. Before I forget, also, you can catch me on Facebook by typing in The Working Artist Project, or you can just type in Darrian Douglas. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Later.